I wish the cameras were on during our off-air conversation with our very interesting guest coming up next. Indigenous company, of course, Emadeb Petroleum Exploration and Production Company says, of course, it's begun its commercial crude oil production from its Ibom field in PPL 236, marking a major milestone and boosting the country's drive to raise crude production. The country, of course, has confirmed that it's, a statement, of course, issued by its management team that commercial production began in October following years of investment, engineering work and regulatory approvals that culminated in the successful development of the offshore field located about 30 kilometers from the shoreline. I think that's in Ibom. And we, of course, played that awesome documentary for you yesterday. In case you missed it, we played that a couple of times. We were happy to have Wale Ayeni. He's the general manager, engineering, operations and projects at Emadeb Energy. You're very welcome, sir. Thanks for joining us on the show. What does an engineer, or rather, what does the general manager for engineering, operations and projects do? So lay it out and inspire the future engineers that are watching right now. Tell us.
Okay, thank you. So engineering, operations and projects. So this is a very wide portfolio that covers every aspect of the operation that we do. We got this field in 2023. So all the processes involved in assessing that field, and producing the field to surface and getting to market falls under my purview.
Wow.
So the engineering work, everything that how to overseeing the resource evaluation, the projects, making sure that we have a plan in place to develop those reserves, and the operation that we are in right now, producing that oil to surface and getting that oil to market. Hey. So it's a wide portfolio, interesting, lots of fun. And
very busy, I can imagine. Look, we love talking to the indigenous companies, the Nigerian companies that are, doing the work there. Your operations, upstream, midstream, downstream, but for these purposes, we're focusing strictly on the upstream parts of your business, which involves, taking oil out the ground. Talk to us about the brief history of the company as far as the E&P segment is concerned.
Okay, so, from the interview, from the video yesterday, you've already gotten a big overview. So I'll try and just fill in the gap so that we don't repeat what you guys already have seen.
Yeah.
So this field, Emadeb E&P took part in the 2020 bid round. We were awarded this field in 2023. And once you are on the field, so it's an offshore field, offshore Ibom. So, you're just in a shallow water about 90 feet.
Yeah.
So generally, to develop a field like this, you deal with two kinds of risk: the resource risk and the execution risk. So for the purpose of this conversation, I'll call the resource risk assessing how much oil you have in place in the field.
Yeah.
So for Ibom field, using industry expert like Petrovision, it was assessed to have more than 100 million barrels of oil in place.
That's a lot.
Yes, it's a lot. Now, for the execution risk, you are looking at deploying the right technology to take that molecule from the subsurface to the surface. And the second aspect of this is taking it from the surface to market. Yeah. So you have the execution, and we were able to connect those three dots over the past two years to get ourselves to first oil. We've just completed our first barging to Bonny Terminal last week. Yeah. And we're looking forward to our first export in the next couple of weeks.
Fantastic.
So we're able to complete those three loops. Now, being able to execute those three things I've just mentioned, there are a lot of technicality involved in it. Yeah. From working with the regulatory, making sure that you have all the permits in place. And NUPRC have done an awesome job. The PIA has made things streamlined. Guidelines are very clear. Performance matrices are very clear. For example, the marginal field, we were given the performance that you have to do certain things within 3 years. They call it the minimum work program. You have to get something done within the next 3 years. And we've been able to achieve this within our time frame.
Now, as far as you talked about the regulator, and it's very important to, the NUPRC, Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, the whole, because I want to ask you about that journey going forward, but can you touch on without not going too far in there, what that process was like? I'm working with the regulator. You said they've been very clear, setting all the requirements for everyone. That process of working with the regulator, what was that like?
So it's an interesting part because NUPRC has evolved quite well. They've become a partner. making it easier, making the guidelines and policies easier in line with the PIA and also industry best practice.
And that's Petroleum Industry Act.
Yes, sorry,
yeah.
okay.
No problem. Like,
exactly, Petroleum Industry Act. So all those measures have been put in place, and there are several interactions with NUPRC to ensure that it's difficult for you to do the wrong thing. So you are always well guided. So even when the field was assessed, putting together what you call the field development plan. So, when you have your resource already defined and is in commercial quantities, you have to come up with a plan to develop that field. And that whole plan, NUPRC is involved in that plan. They help in the development of that plan before it's finally approved. For example, for the Ibom field, we got the FDP approval in 2024. And what that means is that you now have a blueprint for how this field is going to develop. And you have to, of course, satisfy certain criteria that the NUPRC has laid out. That is, of course, consistent with the PIA and all industry best practice.
Look, to go from the Petroleum Industry Act and then everything, the NUPRC, they've always reminding everyone of the marginal field, the bid rounds, and so on. They put out a lot of press releases, articles. It is really important to hear from a player in the sector about how seamless this process has been. So
it's been. One of the interesting part I've seen too about the commission is that the commission is reaching out. For example, now there's a 1 million barrels per day project initiative. They are bringing in players. We are sharing our challenges and looking for how they can be a big enabler to getting us to develop our fields faster. What issues are we having, and how do we go about it? So this partnership, a regulator also being a partner, it's a big help to us in developing these fields. And with the current federal government, through the NUPRC opening up, oil and gas exploration to marginal field players, that is creating an interesting wave in the country. We are getting familiar with the resource. There's capacity development in Nigeria. We are getting, even though the industry is going through several changes now, from IOCs to indigenous companies, in the next 4 or 5 years, these dynamics are going to end up in some amazing multiplier effects. So it's an exciting time for the oil industry in Nigeria. It's an exciting time for the populace. There are several upsides to the current wave that is going on in the industry now.
Very encouraging. I mean, and it just shows how it's important to have a policy direction, execute properly, and make things, easier for players in the sector. And we haven't seen it in the last GDP figures in terms of oil GDP and so on. So just another overview from the Ibom journey to the first oil. How's that been so far?
Yeah, so it's been, of course, there has been several challenges. However, we have a CEO, a visionary CEO that is supportive, that has been the driving force for making all this happen. Once we were given the field in 2023, the train left the station, and that was the CEO with the destination first oil. And we powered ourselves through all the different challenges we had. Of course, after getting that direction and support in place, you get all the regulatory support and permits that you need to develop the field. Then you go into the next layer where, how do I develop this field? And one of the things we are really proud about in the Ibom field is our ability to use local capacity to develop the Ibom field. I'll give you two good examples. When the drilling rig, shelf drilling, almost all their personnel on that rig were Nigerians. The mobile offshore producing unit that is being used to produce right now was integrated in Warri.
I happen to be from there.
Interesting. So much coming from that.
Back in a while.
Another layer is our mooring system. So when you produce offshore, you have to produce into a tanker or you produce into a pipeline. Because we are still at the early phase of development, we have to produce into a tanker. So the mooring system is what you have to install to keep the tanker stationary. This is the feat of engineering, and this was done by a local company, Donald Spectra. They have huge amount of competency in this field, and they are a key integral part in getting us to first oil. So you have a lot of local expertise. We tap into the local contractor, local expertise and capacity to get us to where we are today. So that's a strong sense of pride. And as I peel down to the last layer, funding. You can have the best resource, have the best plans.
But if you don't have money,
we don't have funding. For Emadeb EMP, we sunk in huge amount of equity. However, at a critical stage of the operation, a local bank here, the Fidelity Bank, took us from a critical phase of our operation to first oil.
Hey, look, this is really important news that you're sharing. People need to know the process of how this goes through. You need the money, yeah.
It's amazing.
Shout out to Fidelity Bank.
Yeah, so because if you look at it, if you look at it over time, so you see a situation whereby a country is building its local capacity to develop its own resource. We all know how that will turn out in the end.
Yeah.
You are developing local competency, employment, GDP. There are several multiplier effects. So Nigeria is in a very unique state now. Downstream is increasing its refining capacity. Upstream is trying to increase production. You have gas commercialization taking place. You have banking trying to reconsolidate. So, when all these waves intersect, the amount of multiplier effect we're going to see in the oil and gas industry and Nigeria as a whole is just amazing. Exciting time.
Very exciting. I really like the indigenous, from the technology side to the funding and so on and so forth. So what's next for the company?
So for Emadeb E&P, we have Ibom field. So as I mentioned to you, we have a field development plan. So that plan is a phased development whereby we do an activity, then we go to the next one. So our next activity now is to drill 2 more wells. That will triple our production. We will also, of course, do what we have been doing, tap into the local expertise, optimize our operations, and make sure that we are optimally producing this resource for the country, and making sure that we keep growing and adding our pace to the production drive set by the federal government. So it's still a continuous journey. It's a continuous journey. So this is just a milestone that we just said, let's sit back and celebrate for Emadeb E&P, for the country, for everyone. And this is an outcome of the federal government's commitment in opening the landscape of oil and gas, to local players. And it's beginning to bear fruits. We are contributing our quota to the country. Yes.
There's no better testimony on planet Earth than a private sector player just talking about how operations are going through and the impact of policy. So we thank you so much. This has been incredible. You had a great documentary that we played yesterday, and hearing directly from you, of how things have been working out is really informative and very, very encouraging. Mr. Wale Ayeni, General Manager, Engineering Operations and Products at Emadeb E&P. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.